Hey everyone, Kensukeri here. Sorry for the abrupt conversation that you'll be dropped in on, but it's the continuation from the Pacific Rim 2 episode, and it got a little long, so I made the decision to cut the episode into two parts, with the second being a off review episode. So also to note, during recording, I suffered an internet outage, so I tried to pick up where I left off. So towards the end, probably like within the last 20-25 minutes, there'll be about a minute of my audio that does not seem to line up with theirs. So I didn't feel it was appropriate to delete any of the recording. So it will definitely align after that minute is up, and then you're good for the close. Anyways, without further ado, here's an off review episode of Big Mecha! But not huge.
I really hope the industry stops blue balling John Boyega and let him carry a series
Let
properly.
John Boyega cook.
Because
Let him go.
right, because
Uh,
they they did him dirty in Star Wars. They did him dirty here. I feel like
I think this was just
he
luck.
you
I
know he
think
did
this
really
was
well
just
here.
he made the right choice, and I think they tried really hard. I just think that Pacific Rim 2 didn't find its audience, or at least not a big enough one to warrant a 3. Because I mean, it got a Netflix show. People like it. I just think Pacific Rim is more niche than the studios give it credit for. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's why the property went dormant. Because they were picking it up and thinking, this is going to be super duper A-list. This is going to be crazy and insane. And it's like, no, it's kind of a niche within a niche. It's a giant robot, so that's a specific like giant robot kaiju genre. That's not they're not all going to be Godzilla. There's a reason that specifically that one creature gets talked about. I mean, I love Ultraman, but you want to tell me the last time they made a live action feature length Ultraman movie in America? Never.
In America, not recently, but they have recently done a live action movie based off their most recent show. But
Yeah,
that's
but that is
standard.
a niche thing in Japan for Japan. They didn't make that for the entire world to enjoy. That's not what that was. Pacific Rim, they have it in their head that it's going to be Godzilla, and no. Even that series has its low points that don't do as well as others. It just has a
So
studio willing
looking,
to pour money into it and try again. Pacific Rim, I think they were, because it didn't hit hard enough, they're like, oh, that means it's a failure, which is the very Hollywood response to the situation. I think it's stupid, but, you know.
so looking at box office and budget for the first movie, box office budget was between 180 and 200 million, but the box office was 411 million.
That's double. Even with marketing, they should have
Right, but
pulled some decent cash.
then looking at this one, budget for Uprising was between 150 and 176 million, and box office was 290.9 million.
Half the first movie, theoretically. It made
Yeah.
as opposed to making 200 after the cost of film, it made less than 100. It made 90, like 91, which that kind of drop off of 50%, even though it's a sequel, probably just wasn't worth it to them, which is
Nope.
stupid. But also, there's always the chance that behind the scenes, that made it like a B tier movie. This came out in 2018. 2 years later, the movie industry ground to a halt. So there's always the chance.
Not to mention, too your tentpole movies. Even though when did this movie actually come out? It came out in March.
Looking at release date, it says March 23rd, 2018 for US, and 2 days before for the Chinese theater.
So if I remember correctly, could be wrong. I think the real reason why this movie didn't land is because didn't didn't Affinity War come out like the month
Ooh.
before?
Let me take a look. Let's see.
I think Affinity War came out
Part
in
one
February. Am I
of
wrong?
Thanos the movie.
It did come out in 2018. Let's see. Came out April 27th,
1 month
2018.
later.
April. Okay. So like I'm looking at what else came out in 2018, right? And the list. This is a pretty heavy list. I wasn't a fan of the. I didn't ever watch Quiet Place.
Hmm.
So Quiet Place came out. Deadpool 2,
Wow.
Affinity War. If you're into horror, Hereditary came out as well. Also, Suspiria came out.
Jesus.
Venom came out. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out. Mission Impossible Fallout. Of Ocean's 8, which wouldn't do too great, but it was, a lot of people liked it. Tomb Raider, same as well. Bird Box, that was a nice little meme movie.
But that was also
The
Netflix.
Predators, yep, true. The Predator as well. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, like these aren't like the most incredible two. That's a kids movie still. There's not like there's a few heavy hitters here, but I also think that like your big spectacle movie, I feel like the audience that would go out to the theater to just be like, oh, what's out now? I just want to see some action, right? I feel like you'd be getting burnt out like around this time, depending on what movies you wanted to go see if you knew what was coming out this month, right? Like for me, I don't want to go to a movie every single. I don't want to go to theaters every single month, right? If I go to a theater, it'd be every other month, if not maybe every 3 months, right? 'Cause I don't really have it in me. I don't enjoy theaters. At least I didn't back then. I actually have a theater now. I actually do like it. Seats are great. But if there are other people who think like me, if I'm only gonna go to a movie theater 6 times a year, right? And it's gonna be, and I say I do that every single year. Am I gonna be picking, Pacific Rim around the same
Hmm.
time? Ready Player One as well.
I
You
mean,
know,
if you
like,
want it, then you'll come. It's
yeah, of course. But when you're having to think about your limited time and the amount of money a ticket costs, and the extra add-on you have to do to like, usually you have to think of dinner. A lot of people view going to movies as like a date night,
Mhm.
right? Too. Like it's not just a hangout with friends; it's also a date night thing. And it's like, are you gonna really, like want to do that every single time? There's plenty of people who will go to the theaters all the time. I know you're one of them, Sean,
was.
right?
I don't have as much
I'm the
money
one
anymore.
who, yeah, true. But like, there are people who will just keep going to the theaters, right? I'm not one of these people. I am one of the people who think about like if I only have energy to go to the theater X amount of times a year, I'm gonna go look at what's coming out in 2018 and then trying to figure out what I'm gonna watch that. If I'm gonna go to theater, what I'm gonna
Hmm.
watch, right? So, at the time, I might have skipped Uprising. You know what I mean? If I wasn't like a fan of, cause I'm not a fan of. I'm not a traditional fan. I like the stuff now, right? You've gotten me into it. I have changed my opinion on it. But if you're on the fence or you never watched the first one, I could totally see why this movie wouldn't have gotten the amount of traction it needed
Mhm.
to continue
Mhm.
on. Which is unfortunate because I think it's a really good movie. I think it's fun. I think there's a lot of things that do hold it back because they're desperate to try to get a sequel because even think they knew during production this is going to be a hard sell.
Just you wait,
Um,
Steven, tonight. I'm gonna tweet you again, and I'm gonna let you know when we release this, and I'm gonna say this is a very good movie.
right? But it's a very difficult time when you're having to when you're having to fight for people's time, not just their money.
I agree. It 2018. Well, there are newer or more recent years that are
Oh,
less filled when it comes to the
oh, I can't
what.
forgot that. Bohemian Rhapsody, Black Panther,
Oh
fucking Crazy
wow.
Rich Asians, Ready Player. Yeah, I forgot.
Oh
There's
yeah,
some
no,
more that
Black
are just like,
Panther,
God
but I
damn.
think that was later. But Black Panther, when that came out, made all of the money.
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah,
a November movie, wasn't it? Maybe it was a February movie.
it was. But once again, think about it from the perspective of someone who's closer to me, right? Where they're being picky with their movies because they're not they don't enjoy the
Mm.
theaters, right? It's like if I want to go for an action movie that's like an easy pick up and put down, and I have to pick between Pacific Rim Uprising, Venom, Black Panther, Avengers, and Deadpool 2, like that's a like for people who have limited time or who are very picky about going to the theaters but want to see action, that's a hard
What's funny
sell,
is that I
you
did
know?
see this in theaters 3 times.
Oh,
Oh fuck,
Aquaman.
I forgot about that.
Aquaman. I didn't see Aquaman either. Shit. There's another one.
That's an interesting movie, but that's for another time.
So going off of that though, I do want to, before we finish, ask that question. You mentioned earlier you think that the industry is essentially rediscovering monster movies. I'm curious about that because realistically, for Hollywood and American cinema, the only thing that's really come out has been the Godzilla Legendary series, which has a TV show now. They've done 3 movies, 4 if you count Kong's essentially prequel, Skull Island. Um, you've got the legendary Godzilla movies are 3 movies of Godzilla plus the Kong Skull Island and then a TV show which is Monarch. You have all of that. Other than those, I don't see Hollywood giving a crap about monsters at all. And I'm not going to count, we're talking big monsters, like a monster movie, not like Quiet Place has like 3 movies. The newest one is a prequel.
Right, you're not talking about like creature
Not
features. You're
creature
talking about like
feature,
giant
like giant
monsters.
monster films. Like these are a very specific genre on their own.
So the reason why I think that it's going to take off again, and my only theory behind this, is because of the legendary pictures. Those most recent legendary Godzilla movies have been off the box office chain. Basically, they've been huge hits,
Hmm.
and with the way that each one keeps coming in, each one is actually raking in more money than the last.
Really?
Now, if it still manages to keep that kind of momentum, I could see Hollywood probably tapping into something else beyond Godzilla, but they're going to have to introduce that within Godzilla, kind of like doing the whole spin-off thing again. So, like, if we ever want to see Gamera or anything like that, we've obviously got the whole Netflix stuff going on, and we've got, their reboot movies that came out recently, but, still, strictly speaking, those are technically Japan only. I think that if we manage to actually get something that's more associated with Godzilla, we might actually have a better chance at actually releasing something more long form rather than what we get as imports.
Hmm.
I think it's more possible for monsters because what's the word I'm looking for? It feels like for whatever reason it's harder to sell mecha than it is kaiju. I like for instance, I'm kind of surprised as things that get latched onto from Japanese or say Eastern culture in terms of like media, right? While Gundam is brought up and Godzilla is brought up, usually it's the Shonen Jump the Shonen Jump manga that turned anime, right? Are the ones that everyone usually latches onto. It's your Dragon Ball Z, it's your Naruto, your Bleach, your One Piece, things like that, right? My Hero Academia currently, which is the manga
Mhm.
wrapped up recently. Um, so even though these things are thought about and they make money, I think for whatever reason, Godzilla, granted they took a long break between Heisei era to whatever this current
It's
era is
not
called
really an
now.
era. Being the
Took like a ten
Godzilla
year
one in
break.
this podcast, the last 2 Godzilla movies have been very unique and very specific. They are very much the product of Hideaki Anno, the guy who did Shin Godzilla, and the dude who made Evangelion. That version of Godzilla is his Godzilla. That is his artistic vision applied to that franchise. Going beyond that,
Okay.
that's
You might as well just call it the Shin era, considering the 3 other movies that came out.
essentially. But the
Okay.
newest one is not that because
Cause
minus one
cause
isn't really
under
Shin.
okay.
It's a reimagining, but it's not. I wouldn't call it Shin Godzilla 2. It's its own thing.
No, but Shin does
Okay.
essentially mean new, doesn't it?
Yeah, Shin essentially is just like it's just a thing you stick in the front. It happens a lot in media in Japan for I think it essentially translates to new in like a very basic sense. Or
Mm-hmm.
like the way you would put like noir or nuevo, which are the word new in other languages, they're kind of like it's just this shiny thing that you put in the front to indicate slightly different. But we're not none of these are really connected. Like I would personally argue I headcanoned that 2016 is related to the Netflix show because the way that they did the biology for Shin Godzilla, you could argue leads into the writing for the biology of Godzilla in the Netflix show, but I'm stretching to do that. You could also just say that they're completely different.
You mean the Apple show? Just
No,
to
not the Apple
clarify.
show, the Netflix show. The 3 movies that were on Netflix.
Oh,
The
okay,
3 CG animated Godzilla movies.
okay,
Those
got it.
that version of Godzilla, the biology is very similar to what they sort of hinted at in 2016 when they did Shin Godzilla, but it's not a one-to-one. Like it doesn't look like it at all. They look totally different. And the shows takes a very different approach. Very sci-fi though. Um, that it's not. And then after that, they took a massive break because minus one came out what last year, so they went almost 7 years before they made another movie. or not made, but they went, well, actually, with how movies are made, technically, yeah, they went almost 7 years before making one. And before Shin Godzilla 2016, the last Godzilla movie was like a decade before that.
2023. It was like 2020. It was like 2003, I think, or
You're right
2002, I
around
think.
there. Final
Was
Wars,
that Godzilla? It was
which
a Godzilla
Final War
Final
was
War.
meant to cap off the franchise, and they wanted to put it down and then have nothing happen for a long time because they felt that they had squeezed a little too hard over the 90s. They squeezed too hard, and they're
Oh,
like, all right, so we're going to be smart. We're going to put it down, and then when we're fresh and the audience is fresh, we will come back because Godzilla is basically eternal as far as the studio is concerned. And they're not wrong. They haven't managed to F it up yet. Shin Godzilla is amazing. -1 is amazing, but their approach to it is also they use Godzilla as a metaphor in both of those movies. It's not really Godzilla. It's they're doing other stuff, and Godzilla's also there.
so real quick, uh, it was it, it was actually straight
Hmm.
up 10 years later. The Final Wars was November 29th,
And
2004.
then in
And Shin
Japan,
Godzilla was October 11th,
oh god, 12
2016. So okay,
years.
it was a
Jesus.
little
Yeah.
over a
Oh
decade.
wow.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
put a long break in there, which is why they used to call them eras, because not just the design, but like the writing and what went into it, and some of the
Not because of Taylor Swift either.
no, he did it first. Hipster Godzilla did it first. Uh,
Hipster Godzilla Taylor Swift.
yeah, they they also kind of
If Oh my god! If Godzilla made love songs so songs about like ex
oh
girlfriends or
all of the
whatever, oh,
monsters
Mothra would
that
get it.
Godzilla's killed
Everyone would
before,
hate
each one of them gets a song. Ah, fantastic.
Godzilla's version.
I can't believe you broke his
I
heart,
can't
Mothra.
believe
You
Godzilla's
bitch.
version of "Shake It Off" is basically just getting all the rubble off and trying to get clean.
Yep. Uh, so the eras were kind of similar. They would have similar writing in the old days, like before the 90s and the 80s. They would even have like a similar suit design, and the feel for the movies would kind of reflect what they were going for. And you can you can group them sort of like that. They also, I believe, were named after the generational names for those time periods in actual
Yeah,
Japanese culture. So, like, Heisei is a specific
yeah.
time in Japanese history and pop culture, and that the version of Godzilla from that time is called Heisei Godzilla. Um, and they had a lot more.
Hey, say Godzilla.
Yeah, so yeah, okay then. So hey, say Godzilla. God damn it. So the reason why I say all that is that I think the reason why it's harder for Mecha is because also the supporting material around each of the subgenres, it's more monster stuff is
Hmm.
supported way better, both in secondary media of small monster flicks like a Quiet
Hmm.
Place, for instance, here right. So there's also really cool monster shit in anime, right? So people are usually kind of the monster stuff stays in that zeitgeist in a way, whether it might not be big kaiju, but it's still there. The mecha genre doesn't have like it just has Gundam occasionally. And occasionally you'll see it break out of other stuff, but like even within like games, this is the reason why I'm leaning to. I think Sean has a potential to be right, but not because of
Hmm.
a legendary. I am always baited every single fucking time to play the next mecha game or next game that comes out that has robots in it. I get baited to some degree. I've stopped myself from buying them. They're almost always bad or almost so limited to make it not cross the finish line of I can recommend this to other people, right? Or it was good to where I enjoyed it,
Mhm.
right? Gundam did one recently, and they shut it down as of like I think September of this year. No, September of last year. They announced a shutdown. I think the servers went down on March, and it was a Gundam like basically like Overwatch game, and it was really weirdly like it had a lot of the iconography of Gundam. You were fighting other main series of Gundam things, but it was really weirdly clunky. The balance was off. Some maps were just really unfun to play. The classic problem with hero shooters
Well,
have,
I've got another one for you
right?
now.
Uh,
It's called Megaton Musashi Wired.
what is that? That
So
sounds
it's by
familiar.
Level 5, the people who did Dark Cloud, Rogue Galaxy, Professor Layton,
Oh,
Nino Kuni. It is a mecha action RPG where you actually feel like you are piloting a mecha suit and you're able to pull off these really cool super anime moves.
Okay, so you're getting into the other thing I'm going to say too. There's a game coming out, and I've only watched streamers play it because it's
Mega
closed
Break.
beta. Yes, Mecha Break. Holy shit, that game right now, from what I'm seeing, looks exactly like what I've always wanted in a game. Like Armored Core, like nothing started, but definitely put the idea of robots running around and you have mobility and you're moving. Like, that
Did you
looks
play
really
Demon X
fun,
Machina?
right? And now Mecha, no, I think I played it. Oh wait, isn't that
It's
an
on
older
Switch
one?
and,
Like from the?
I think PC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I did. I don't think I did. What's that
Demon
called
X
again? Or
Machina.
type it, say it again. Demon.
Like
X.
DAEMON.
Okay. Got it. Oh, I saw this. I didn't pick it up. No, I didn't pick it up. It was one of the things that just slipped my mind because it was like during COVID era. So I forgot. But I forgot about
makes
this.
You forget about Mecha. Just remember that, folks.
Well, no. In 2019, I was, I was kind of nervous about COVID, and then that was nervous because girlfriend at the time getting into the nursing field, so I was like really worried about it. And then so the things like this that like the a lot of things that I used to like and pay attention to, I totally like forgot all about. Like 2019 was kind of a blur for me because I was just like I was worried about other shit, and I just kind of stuck with my usual like login standard games. I didn't really play much.
Well,
But no, Mecha Break is like currently what I'm looking at, like the game to be looking at if you like mecha. And so I'm like, hopefully, if we're getting really good titles that are pulling people's attention to the subgenre of big robot do cool shit, maybe that will translate going outwards further, because the idea of monster do cool shit or beating up monsters and having that stuff always existed. I feel like Godzilla will always come back no matter how good or bad the movies will do, because the idea of fighting monsters or monsters fighting is never going to go away and will always be done to some degree in some other medium in a way to keep the idea fresh in your brain. And it's not until like I would say the last 2 years I would feel like it's kind of the same now for mecha. Granted, in the gaming side, hopefully we'll see a little bit more independent in movie side of things. Maybe we'll see a comic that isn't a Pacific Rim come out to maintain it. It just can't be all. It can't be on the shoulders of one franchise, right? It needs to be multiple people doing shit. Because I do know there are plenty of people. If anyone else hears this, and there'll probably be people being like, "No, Japan does this or that, whatever." There's plenty of mecha stuff, but it's like it doesn't translate to other areas all that often well. And even if you do hear about it, like I mentioned before, all the top anime that you got them saying is just people punching each other in the face, right? In different manner, right? Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, all that stuff. Like people always think about it. It comes back up all the time. Naruto's been done for how many years now? But there's still another Naruto Shippuden game that came out like a year ago.
Well, Boruto's still going, so
no
Naruto's not technically over yet. They just had his kid take over.
Yeah, I'm reading that, and that's
We're not getting
interesting.
into that. I refuse to get into that here.
But yeah, so yeah, no, it's I hope that the genre gets more injected into it that hits different subcultures, and we can the next time a mecha movie does come out, we can all go, yeah, let's go fucking watch that, right? Let's go out and and maybe we won't have another Pacific Rim happen.
It's funny because we say that, but as much as people have strong opinions about live-action Transformers movies, they're still going, and they're still making money. Granted, they went through a heavy redesign and rewrite because the director put it down and is like, I'm done with this, and he's letting other people take over, which has resulted in it being fresh and new, but it's still going, and he made 6. So the idea that it's still running and it is a unique iteration of it, and then on top of those happening, there's another animated feature-length Transformers film coming out later this year. And we just had a live-action Transformers happen, was it this year or last year, when the Beast Wars won?
Last year.
Beast Wars one
So
was
they're
last year, I think. Yeah.
those are still going. Transformers are still heavily in the zeitgeist, very popular, very lucrative, still happening. I like your approach of it feels like monsters never truly go away, but the robots do. I have a question, for both of you, and then I mean, if anyone's listening and they feel like chiming in, I feel like the reason we as humans have written stories that are basically filled with metaphor about fighting monsters for millennia. We have, I mean, you go back to like uh, Grendel, where Beowulf is just telling stories about slaying monsters. We've had monsters exist in our culture all around the world forever. We've always done that. Giant robots are kind of like a weird specific offshoot of that, and they kind of, do you think it's because they don't have, sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't have a deeper like meaning essentially to them? Like they truly are an extension of the person using it, so they are just that person, so it heavily comes down to the character that is written or what else is happening in the show. Like they are truly the tool that even here in reality we create robots for. We use them as tools, and therefore they aren't allowed to essentially stand on their own. And yes, you have stories like sentience and robots and things like that, but that's an entirely different metaphorical discussion about what it is to be real, what it is to be alive. When it comes to specifically like
So
giant
I
robots,
think
it
you asked
doesn't
your
do that.
question and then you moved on to something else a little bit deeper there. What exactly is your question?
So, given that when we write monsters, we generally are writing metaphor, but when we write giant robots, we kind of aren't. Do you think that's the reason that they don't stick around and they kind of come and go? It's an ebb and a flow, and they'll have a niche, but they don't really hit the middle of the bell curve when it comes to people and specifically pop culture and movies.
Hmm.
Uh, I think because you use Transformers as an example, Transformers is a good example of why it can stay, but it kind of gets
Hmm.
put in its little isolated bubble. To where, yeah, you're right. I don't think of a Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of Mecha, I don't think Transformers because Mecha. I think of humans
Mm-hmm.
interacting with the robot in a way they're directly controlling it, right? So where essentially we become the monsters or we become the heroes ourselves, right? Where Transformers are an alien threat that we have
Yep.
to work with or work against, right? So it's not the same. Like even though yes, they are mecha in a sense that they are
And
mecha
they're giant
because they're
robots.
literally made out of metal. But when I think of mecha, I think of a creation that we're dealing with and
Rather
we're
than
getting in,
sentient
we're
beings.
piloting. Yeah, like the reason I don't think of them as mecha is like in that kind of way is because yeah, they're sentient beings. They're just like it's kind of like saying like you're a mecha because
You're
you know what I mean like yeah like no like they're
Mm-hmm.
their own race of people,
You're a
you know.
cow.
So yeah, don't get me wrong. Transformers is a great example, but it's the reason why I don't think of it. But in that same vein, the reason why I think it's harder is because um, there's like the reason why I think Transformers works is because Transformers
Hmm.
works more like monster flicks in that regard, because there's like how many times have we seen Optimus
Oh
Prime
yeah.
kind of be used like a Jesus analogy?
Every
Oof.
fucking
He dies
Michael
and gets
Bay
He
movie.
resurrected,
dies a lot. It's a real bad habit.
right? He is the savior complex, but like you don't really get that with Mecha, right? It's you have to fight to the end because the existential threat is either ourselves
Hmm.
or whatever's directly in front of us,
Generally
the
a war
war,
analogy, yeah.
right? It Yeah. So Transformers gets away with it, and I kind of view Transformers in that way closer to monster films because, like I said, they're sentient beings.
Yeah.
Granted, yes, I know they're metal, but they kind of lean in that direction, and there's also more analogy with that because once again,
Hmm.
Optimus Prime is just robot Jesus. And also too another thing, like how much betrayal like isn't like Starscream kind of like Starscream or Megatron depending on the series, they're kind of just
Oh yeah.
Judas, right? Because one of them's betraying the other
It's
and then trying to take
it's
you know what I
political
mean? Like there's a
intrigue
little bit of there
where
too because it's like
Starscream and even other
yeah,
parts of the Decepticon army have their own agendas, and they wind up working against or with Megatron. They also will make alliances with other alien races throughout the shows and the series, where it's like a tenuous relationship and then it breaks. So it has very human politics and personalities. They just happen to be big transforming robots with laser guns. Hmm.
exactly. But I think that's the reason why I think it's a bit more difficult for Mecha as a subgenre than is Transformers, because I kind of think Transformers is kind of its own thing. I know there are plenty of
Yeah.
people who disagree with me. They're like, no, they're big, they're
Yeah.
metal, they're robots, whatever. Like for me, it is its own thing because of, like, yes, surface little, yes, they're metal, but there's a bit more going on there. There's like, God, the amount of times there's like a resurrection scene in Transformers is like way too many to count. Even didn't like Bumblebee die as well, and then get
Twice.
resurrected, right?
Wow.
I think wasn't it twice? Thank you. There you go. Like there always like there's a lot of like that resurrection imagery that's there that doesn't really exist in Mecha. The closest we get is, I'm surprised the core had enough energy to fire the last shot in Mecha, right? There isn't a lot of humanity in the Mecha itself than it is the conflict the Mecha is fighting against.
And it's the
So
human who brings the humanity, not the robot. Where if you pull them out of the
yeah,
robot, that's still a character with a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and it comes down to, do you like the character? The giant robot almost becomes secondary.
Well, all right. So I'm gonna piggyback
exactly.
off of that. The only way that we're actually gonna get anything decent is if they focus on bigger stories. Like for instance, do you remember, David, when you and I
Hmm.
went to go see Battle Los Angeles a long time ago with the
Ooh.
Sergeant Master Chief?
Yeah.
What?
We called him Sergeant Master
God,
Chief
that's
because
a
he had
blast.
the hero complex.
Hmm.
Yep.
So basically,
God, it's so
Um,
long ago.
the only way that we're able to get anything even remotely mecha-wise in anything mainstream in America is if we end up tying it to something bigger than the mecha itself. It has to be either a bigger story or a bigger piece of the puzzle, like in terms of, like, let's say Pacific Rim. Even though the mecha were cool and they were front and center, what's Pacific Rim mainly about? Giant monsters.
Fighting the
So
monster.
we have
Technically,
to
yeah,
tie
it's
it into
man
something
versus
else.
monster.
Exactly. So you just tie it into something else, and then the mecha can be involved somehow. But it's because American mainstream media, they don't really care about that. They only care about guns. They care about love. They care about sex, and they care about violence. And then the violence has to be interpreted in some different way. This way, it was just giant robot punch giant monster. Um, I think, at least in terms of the anime crowd and the gaming crowd, it's a little bit different because then you actually have your mecha subgenre where people can actually go ahead and pay attention to all the different things. You've got Gundam, which essentially is the thing that people are striving for, but in terms of different plot and all the different theming, it's
It
just
is
they don't
weird.
see it beyond, giant mecha.
It is weird that Gundam never got. Just to be totally honest, it's weird that America doesn't have a live-action Gundam show, because it's the main things that Tomino has poured into Gundam and into several of the shows is literally political intrigue, a parable about how war is bad, and all of the people in it are soldiers. How did those three things not make them just drool over it and fight each other to try and get the rights? Like, those three things make money as movies in America all the time. Why have they not done that? Like, you already make those movies,
My
it's just that, but with a CG budget for the giant robot.
Supposedly somebody is
my
making it. The guy who did the Kong Skull Island movie.
Oh shit. Okay, that might be
I think
good, because
Really?
that
I
movie
think
was
he's
amazing.
I think he's actually doing it for Netflix, if I'm not
Oh my
mistaken.
god, that might be good. That movie's really good.
So, okay, if that's the case, I'll rescind this thing I'm going to say because Netflix might give them enough time if they break it up into different pieces. Because my problem with Gundam not really working as a feature-length film is you need so much time to let things breathe. I don't know how you get that into the movie unless you run into a Snyder cut level
Oh,
problem in which you have a
well, that was a
4 hour
5-hour
movie,
miniseries,
right?
essentially.
5 hour, yeah. So like that's the issue, right? For instance, Pacific Rim 1. How many times did I say that there's a lot of interesting things in this universe, but because we're focusing on the end, we don't get to see any of that, right? And then now in this one, we get to see a little bit more of the universe, and it's like it feels weird and disjointed because they're trying to get you remember the first one while also making something new here, in certain aspects, to where it's like you don't have that problem in Gundam because like most Gundams start pretty explosively in the very first 3
Kids
episodes,
dying, parents
and then it's a
dying, yeah.
slow, then it's a slow burn for
Yep.
5, right? It really lets you, they talk about where they gotta go, who the players involved. They try to get some political intrigue going on. They try to get some tension between
They
certain
also tend to
characters.
have a lot.
They
There's
really
a lot of
lengthen it out.
plates spinning in most Gundam shows. I genuinely get lost sometimes when they go a
Yeah.
little too intriguey. I'm like, okay, I genuinely don't remember what that character's motivation is because they're like character 40, and you introduced them all over the last 15 episodes. And yeah, I'm just gonna simplify this for myself. They don't like the main characters at the moment. Got it, Chief. And then we just move forward.
Yep. And then you have situations where even if there is a fight, it's a pretty short fight, or it's a skirmish fight, so the stakes are pretty low in those like next few episodes after the opening thing. Like there are some there's a formula that lends itself really well to allow Gundam to be, it's I think the only one I can think off the top of my head. Granted, I've not watched every single Gundam because I physically can't. He's not right now. Kind of the attention span for it is G Gundam was the one I can think of off the top of my head that was pretty different. Every episode was like a serialization thing. If there wasn't a tournament at the very end, it would feel like a serial. Whereas like the one episode you watch it, you move on. There's always a fight scene in the one episode, and then you keep going, right? You keep it trucking.
Yeah.
But besides that, yeah, a lot of them are kind of like that, and the ones that aren't like that leverage the IP or the series it's built in to do the heavy lifting. Like the one I always remember is 8th MS Squad is based off Universal Century, and they pretty much assume you have watched all of Universal Century up until this point. They're going to explain nothing to you.
That sounds about right.
And even that was a short one. Is that one like only
12.
like 8 episodes? I think 12. Okay, so that one's really short comparatively. So
That one also
like,
told a very different story.
you know-
The point of 8th MS Team was to
That
tell
too.
a personal story. So knowing the other stuff about the world helps inform what's happening, but you could know nothing about Gundam and still they're going to introduce all the characters episode 1, episode 2, and then it's all about their story and their experience. So arguably, if you know nothing about Gundam, that's technically one of the better ways to enjoy that one because it puts you in the shoes of the characters because they're all brand new. They're 2 of them are really young, and they're all just experiencing it on a very personal level. Because the point of that one was to tell a personal story.
I guess you're right in that as well. I kind of took it as more so like the conflict is heating up, and they engage with the conflict. Like we're supposed to know why the
I would
conflict
argue
is
that
happening,
Thunder.
right?
Sean, what's the one with Thunder in the title? Thunder.
Thunder.
Oh god.
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is more like that. Thunderbolt, I think, is very confusing if you know nothing about Gundam.
Really, Gundam Thunderbolt. I got out of it. I gotta get back into it possibly.
Well, that's good.
Oh, this is
gonna
the
be one of the
design.
things that I plan on doing. Also, I'm
That-
looking up the
that's the
director's
design.
information. It says in 2021, it was announced that Vogt Roberts would direct a live-action adaptation of Gundam from a screenplay by Brian K. Vaughan.
That was
The film will be produced
Vaughan?
by Legendary Entertainment. Yeah,
Holy
by
shit.
Legendary Entertainment and distributed by Netflix.
They pulled a name for that one. Damn. People love the stuff that Vaughn writes.
So, yeah.
That was also 3 years ago, and nothing
So-
else has been said. So,
So
Yep.
So if they give it like if they want to put it on Netflix, if they can just give it like I don't know if you liked or disliked the Godzilla thing they did on Netflix. I haven't watched it, but I think that's the way how you keep something alive, where it's like you give people an hour and a half and it's broken into 3 parts and you hope for the best. I wanted to get into it, but my friend the only other person I know outside you that likes Godzilla was like, this is stupid. And I'm like, okay.
so
cool, I won't waste
it's
my time.
really,
Yes.
really weird. It's about the best way I can describe the Netflix trilogy of movies. They're very weird. They do have like the best representation of light speed travel, or closer to light speed travel I've ever seen in any sci-fi, like ever, in the first episode. So if you want to watch like 20 minutes and see that done really, really well, there's that. Yeah, I did. When it came out, a friend of mine was like, that's the best way to show light speed I've ever seen. It is essentially as close to what we currently understand as what would be like approaching light travel would feel like and be like, and the way that they describe it, and the way that they refer to the math and how it affects time and the passage of it for the people there as opposed to the objects you're traveling between. That's all based off of our current understanding of physics. I don't know why the people writing that movie bothered to try that hard, but it's a really good representation. If you want a nice little 10-minute explanation of what would that look like, it'd look like that. It's based off of our understanding of physics. That's what that would be.
I might actually go peep that out then.
And then it just gets
because of
really
that.
weird after that. Like by the time you get to the end of the third movie, you're like, "Oh God, this has gotten really weird. I don't understand." But it has some coherence issues personally. I think that the consistency doesn't quite work between them. They feel a little too disjointed. I don't know if there was like behind the scenes writing stuff that went into it, if like it was one person put the whole thing together as a flowchart and then other people like really honed in on each one, which is why they feel a little off. Or if just they wanted to tell too big of a story and they were like, oh, this actually should have been like an anime with 20 episodes and time wise we're only running with like 9. Oops. Like, I don't know if that's what sort of happened. But like a similar modern example would be Dragon Ball Super was written by multiple writers. Each episode would be like a different writer. So they had like 3 people doing it so they could get out a bunch of them, which is why sometimes characters would kind of shift from one episode to another. You'd be like, oh, that kind of feels weird because the person who wrote the episode before and the episode after are different than the one writing the one that you're watching. So character motivations would sometimes be a little inconsistent, but yeah.
Yeah, they kind of make Goku in some places look
They also made
kind of
Vegeta
weird.
really
Yeah,
fucking weird at one point where I was like, what the fuck? Why would he even do that? And then I found out there was multiple writers and I was like, oh, that explains most of my gripes with Super for the writing is you were doing it as a team. Yeah. Explains that.
I had a friend try to like, if I'm in the minority, I'm fine with being in a minority of this one. I had a friend who was like, no, it makes sense that Goku would force the tournament of power to happen. I'm all like, listen, I get that he's dumb and he loves to fight. I understand that, but when a guy who's stronger than you, who is gonna come kill your world, and the guy who is stronger than possibly both of you, the Angel Beasts, are all kind of telling you to not have Zeno remember that you were going to do a tournament, maybe just leave that alone. Maybe not talk. Maybe even people who are stronger than you, who are training you, to leave that guy alone. Maybe you listen to that. Maybe just a little bit, and then Goku has basically essentially starts a universe genocide that was only saved because Zeno knew, or at least the Grand Angel knew that if Universe 7 won, one of them would use the wish to bring everyone else back. I'm all like, that's a bold thing
That's a
to
bold
have
gamble.
happen. That
That's a
is
hella-
crazy.
That's how it ends.
Like, that's
I
how it
haven't
gets.
even finished
Goku basically.
that arc yet because I was getting bored.
Sean, that
Good
anime
Lord.
is years old at
Yes.
this point.
So,
I just bought the
Yeah.
Steelbook edition of it all.
Wow.
So.
oh, yeah. Goku gets the first tournament started with them and 6. Zeno likes it, and then he goes, "Yeah, we should do it again." And the Goku's like, "Yeah, sure, totally." And then Goku reminds them after Trunks Saga, and then basically he is then told, "By the way, this is for keeps. If your universe gets eliminated, you all die immediately, and you watch people die in real time. They get zapped out of existence. So it's not technically death. They just were never there in the first place." And then the Mega Super Oh My God Dragon Balls undoes everything because of course it does. But even then, it does so on the idea that like basically the other thing was if universe basically it was kind of, I think it was either literally said or implied that if whoever didn't make the virtuous sacrificial wish of this one in a lifetime opportunity to bring all the universes back, then Zeno would have actually culled more universes.
Wow.
Possibly. There was a line of which he knew it would happen, but if it didn't, then everything would have stayed permanent.
Zeno would have let them
was.
all stay dead because it doesn't mean anything to him because Zeno is the purest expression of absolute power. Zeno is essentially a child. He has the capacity. It has the capacity to kind of empathize sometimes, but it also plays with all of reality the same way that you would pick up a picture frame. Like it doesn't, I don't feel emotionally connected to the picture frame. It's just a thing. So Goku starts a blood
Yeah.
sport that results in a bunch of universes dying out of existence, and he is okay with it. And they never say why, and everybody finds it weird. And you had this big debate of people being like, well, part of this disconnect is because in America they felt the need to make him basically Superman, and then in Japan they left him as more of a he likes to fight. But even for the Japanese one, he was never so hungry for battle that he was willing to risk the lives of his friends and family. He would always fight when necessary, but Goku was never that bloodlusty that he was like, I have to fight. Even if it means my family dies, I must fight. He was never that hungry for it. So it was weird that Super's entire conceit for like 80% of its runtime was that Goku was so hungry for a fight, he was willing to essentially get people held at gunpoint and sorry, get other people's like family held at gunpoint so he could have a good fight. That's really out of character in basically every version of Goku that I'm aware of. That never made any sense. We just let it go because, you have to. It's not your choice. But it's really weird.
Yeah. And then like I'm if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. He is told that explicitly, yeah, everyone's lives gonna
Nope.
be in danger. He doesn't get mad about it. He doesn't outrage. If I remember
Yep,
correctly, he
that's
says
it.
all we have to do is win, and
He
everything is
brushes
fine.
it off.
Even though he is told
Hmm.
everyone else will die.
I hate Goku.
I don't like. So here's the thing: Super has some cool moments, but it does have some stuff in it where it's like, oh, that's just stupid. Like it feels like they don't understand the character, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like that's the thing that someone else would do.
I will say one of the best scenes in Dragon Ball history, in my opinion, is
Which
in
one's that?
Super though. Unfortunately,
Where
it's the
they
Roshi
also
scene.
wrote him weird, but it's obviously not the scene you're referencing. Is it the? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, where he just
the final Kamehameha.
two. I think there's two scenes. There's that, and then there's when he's leading
Oh,
up to the tournament. They show him going back to Korin's tower and training, and you get a really nice heartwarming scene where he talks about how he remembers training there as a kid, and him and Korin have known each other for like 100 and something years. So he's just like getting back into it. It was a nice little moment.
Hmm.
yeah, that's true too. Yeah. But yeah, no, that like that final Kamehameha thing was like, oh, that like even though I knew he
Yeah.
wasn't going to like be dead because obviously
Yeah.
you just get moved back over the thing and get healed. Part of me was like, but even then, he might not have thought
Mhm.
that. I'll let that go, right?
Mhm.
But I like the
Oh yeah,
earnestness of the
100%.
scene where he
And
just
the
like
way
puts
that
it
they
all
write
into it.
Krillin
But
is
yeah.
also another positive for that part of the show. They let Krillin be a character again. They actually let him do stuff.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, a little
We
bit.
got- we
Well,
got
that's
well off
because I
topic.
brought up an artistic
So-
question about the nature of the art we're talking about and
Sure.
like where it comes from. So, sorry.
I think I'm going to
But
end up putting that, like, basically from that question onwards, probably as a secondary, like, a appendix type thing.
actually was gonna say we should consider doing two outros here, one for the movie and one for
Yep.
basically the rambles after the movie,
I,
just
I
so
got it covered. No
you
worries.
know. Oh, you do? Okay, cool.
I got my shiz.
All right. Yeah, there's enough for you to work with. There's enough for you to work
Oh,
with.
yeah.
That's all that matters.
Even though this is a pain in the ass to edit, it's I know it. I have a brief understanding of what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Cool. But yeah, no. I hope the mecha genre comes back in different forms and is reinforced by other genres, really like putting it into the thoughts of people's heads. So where people think about what the cool shit that came out this year, maybe one of them will say a mecha thing because I hang out in different places online. I play Final Fantasy. I play some
Mecha
mobile
monster
games.
fucking.
I'm in Discords. I'm in. You know what's funny? Because you brought up Evangelion. I play a mobile game. I play my PC. I don't like playing on my phone. That's
Ah.
weird. I play Nikkei, and they're doing a crossover with Evangelion.
nice.
That was announced today.
So, plug suits.
But yeah, these are all technically like androids essentially. Every character is an android, but all the girls are androids basically. They have human brains. But it's just a thing where it's like the mecha genre always seems to be getting closer and closer to staying in to where it's like, hey, what's the cool thing that came out this year, right? And you know, maybe more than that one guy with niche things that says stuff that no one knows about. It will, you know, more people be like, yeah, this cool mecha thing came out. Like, oh yeah, I watched that, or oh, yeah, whatever. Like in all of my years being online, with the exception of like maybe a handful of people ever, no one's ever been like this cool mecha thing happened, right?
Generally,
That
yeah.
wasn't Gundam, right? I right. I've been online a ton for most of my life, especially since you know
I've been
you know
online since back in
hanging out in these
'94.
subcultures, right? Oh, I wish I wasn't, but you know. I got online like a little bit later than everybody else. I got on mid 2000s. I was online before, but it was only for like a game, and then that was it. I was never like inside of subcultures or anything else like that. Right? I wasn't part of Tumblr. I wasn't part of early YouTube. I wasn't part of any of it. I was just like the Discord era is when I started hanging out with people. But yeah, no one unless you go into specific Discords that are talking about it, like your general like the Final Fantasy Discord here or another game I played over there, like no one's talking about Mecha, right? Whenever they talk about the thing that they're into. So it's like, yeah, maybe this will change, right? Maybe Mecha Break, maybe more stuff coming out will change that, and people will be like, yo, this cool shit, this is amazing.
There's also Gundam Breaker coming out soon. I think it's Gundam Breaker 4.
I'm pretty sure I bought the previous Gundam Breaker and I really did not like it.
Was it new Gundam Breaker? Because that one's
It might
terrible.
be that one on PS5 or PS4. I bought it cheap to try it out. It's a terrible game.
It's the one with like a purple bluish color.
You play it like a school.
Yeah, that's new Gundam Breaker.
That is an
that
awful
one's
game.
terrible.
I was genuinely sad that I saw Gundam
Yeah.
Breaker was getting a 4. I'm like, really? You're gonna make another one of these pieces of trash? I can't get Federation versus Xeon 2, but you
hold
get
off.
that.
Hold off, because like Gundam Breaker 3, like the one that we originally got on PS4 that was like a Japanese import that we got over, that game's actually a lot of fun. I bought that on Amazon a couple years ago, and man, that game's legit fun. It's just a hack and slash, and it's like reminiscent of Dynasty Wars Musou games.
Oh, like Dynasty Warriors Gundam? They did
but
3 of those.
Yeah, it's like that, but they make it a little bit more special because everything looks like it's made out of plastic. And that's what makes it special.
Okay.
Plastic.
Gotcha.
No, next time we hang out, I'll actually get to show you that. It's actually a really fun game. Like it's really cool going into an arena and all of a sudden, Domon Kashu's shining Gundam box comes circling down to the center of the arena, and then all of a sudden the theme song from when he starts playing his Burning Finger song.
Such a beautiful
It's like,
theme.
oh my god.
Such good music.
Yeah.
It is. I had friends who used the Ragon G. I like G.
I tried to watch
G
it
was
in
the fun
Japanese
one
and
that
I can't
enjoyed.
because the English dub is so cemented in my brain. I'm like, I have to watch this in English. It's not a choice. It's not bad in Japanese. I need the English
It's
cast.
one of the few.
Fucking sell that show.
You want to know what it is? It's one of the, because the Japanese one, it feels like they're doing it very earnestly, like a very normal Gundam production. Because I usually tend to watch sub over dub for Gundam almost every time.
Oh,
I love how hammy it feels.
Not just him.
The
Like,
English
it's not
version
just
is.
him. He actually, technically, the guy who does Domon in English and Japanese, both of them give a heartfelt performance. But the fact that everyone else in the English is just like, oh no, this is goofy as shit. We're gonna lean in.
Yeah. The master, the other suits, the other suit members that he has of the other individual like Diamond and Club and all that, even his partner, they're all like
Everyone knows
they're all hamming it up, you know.
Yep,
they're all
they know what they're
giving
in.
it their
They're
all,
like,
but
we know
there's a
what this
level
is.
of
We got this.
But I guess to also add a little bit to like the whole zeitgeist thing, where like yes, this is not technically monster, but it's still in that monster-esque where it's like stalking, whatever. Like I like watching Dead by Daylight, and that game is old as shit. And they usually add a monster every so often, or they usually
You're
add
a
another
monster
stalker
for watching
character.
that garbage
Wow.
game. But anyways.
What? That, what do you mean? It's a fun game. I wouldn't play the game because it's oddly expensive at times, and it is time consuming to get a build together. Like you pretty much have to be playing that game every single day to feel like you got something, like you would see someone play online with, right? Effectively, every person has 3 perks, and once you get those perks maxed out, those perks will then be on the other people's blood web for them to unlock later, both the survivor and monster. So if one monster you like playing, one slasher or monster you like playing has shit perks, you then have to go play another monster to get their good perks for them to be available for you
That
to
sounds like
even
a hell of a
get
time
on your
sink.
level up.
That's a
thing.
Final Fantasy level
So
of like the sphere grid that technically
Yeah.
everyone shared. Yeah, you could max it out, Mister. I'm
Yeah.
gonna roll the clock over when it hits all 3 nines,
Well,
which I've seen happen.
right, but I also like.
But
I
I
also like
kind
doing
of
other
don't want to
things,
sacrifice
right?
my marriage and all
But
social obligations. I kind of want to be a human. I'm
Right.
sorry, and they just glare at me from the other side of the screen. The developers are like, "So what you're saying is you're not dedicated."
But like I watched Dead by Daylight, and it's a fun game to watch, and it reminds me of the idea of like it's just another thing that reinforces that like other being coming to kill you, work against the monster, cooperation, leave. Granted, it's not the same. It's obviously more akin to a slasher film, but there's a lot of like really creepy looking fucking freakazoids in this that aren't just slashers, and also there's also too crossover events. There's Nemesis from Resident Evil 3 in here. There's Wesker. There's there's Freddy Krueger. Not Jason not yet, but there is Michael Myers. Like this game stays in people's minds, or it comes back every so often for anyone who's even remotely interested in that kind of like horror genre, because they're always doing something new. They're always bringing it back. There's always some sort of life being injected into it. I hope that's a thing that we get later with Mecha to some degree, to keep it always in your mind, the crossovers, the new one.
Always
You know what I
keep it
mean? I hope
fresh.
there's something like that later on that just doesn't. Yeah, that's what I mean, right? Because like you know about Transformers before and other things, but like there isn't that one thing where it's like that hits every little subgenre in a way that goes, oh yeah, I've heard of that, I've played that, that's still going. Who'd they add? Holy shit, that's cool, right? And that doesn't really exist as strongly, like I kind of wish it did. Hell, they're trying to have 2 versions of that already, because like they tried to do a Chainsaw Massacre one, which isn't doing super great, but apparently now is. But
That looked like garbage when that
it's
came
just one
out
of those
too.
things.
I just don't like that type of game type.
Isometric game styles where you against the enemies is definitely a hard sell. I also don't like playing it. I just prefer watching it, which obviously is not helpful for sales.
The only one that I enjoyed was Evil Dead the game, because that one was still more of a co-op experience compared to what you would normally get out of those other ones.
Yeah, and that was fun for what it was. I watched gameplay of that as well. That was also a really fun looking game, but I can also see the hard limitations of it pretty immediately. Like the fun with that game was limited.
Yeah, that's why it dropped off after a couple months.
Yeah, but it was great one. But once again, there's always that kind of idea of fighting against the alien force, fighting against the monster essentially. Like that keeps coming up. People keep making those kind of games, and they get like really weird niche success. Some of them last for almost a decade. Some of them are a flash in the pan. And thanks to like places like Twitch, they'll always get big coverage. And thanks to YouTube, they'll always get like a good video, right? Out of the variety gameplay YouTubers will pick it up. That's what I think is needed for the mecha genre, right? That's not really a thing that exists in that manner. Like the closest we got was a few videos of people being like, "Oh my god, Exoprimal is so garbage."
Exoprimal.
That's the closest we got.
I
Forgot about that
wouldn't hear
game.
in such a long time.
I had a few streamers play Exoprimal just be fucking mad the entire
I
time.
looked at that as soon as it came out with the preview. I'm like, this does not look good. This just for anything that like we were expecting something like fucking Dino Crisis related, and then it came out Mecha Dino. Oh god, this is
Yeah.
terrible. This looks like Anthem, and then it was just Anthem but done as a Left 4
Oh,
Dead type game.
oh, fantastic! Thank you for reminding me about that giant disappointment. Holy
Oh,
shit!
Anthem?
Yeah.
Talk about robots.
Right? God damn, that had so much hope behind it. By the way, fun fact about that. I don't know if you guys know about this. The original idea of Anthem was to actually not have the rocket-propelled movement. They added it into the game. They showed it to the CEO, and then when they showed the next part of the game, they removed it. They didn't want the flight in the game, right? And then he's like, "Oh, why can't I fly now?" And they're like, "Oh, we got rid of it." He looked at them and all he said was, "Why? Put it back in." Because the flying thing was the only good thing about Anthem. I liked flying around in Anthem. That was fun.
That yeah, I was about to say yeah, you're right on there. It that looks like it was legit the only funny thing about it,
To be
or
fair,
fun thing.
the CEO called that. Without the flying, it's just a generic shooter.
Yeah. So, like,
And he's right.
100%.
Like, why would you remove the one selling point? But what killed Anthem was a bunch of other crap and the fact that it never finished. Like, I played it and I beat the story because I really wanted to play it. I also bought it very cheaply. But I really wanted to play it and I enjoyed it. But I would be lying if I told you I didn't have to push through. The game itself was so buggy that I got glitched out on one of the final missions. Took me several tries to get it to properly load, and even when it did, I missed out on an entire cutscene because it didn't load properly. I had to go look it up on YouTube to see what I missed.
I gave up when there was that big content wall where they're like, "Hey, play the game, doing a bunch of side quests for 20 hours." I'm like, no, sorry, I got other shit I gotta do. There's other games I can be playing. I don't need to be stuck at this fucking side quest thing or this quest thing to progress forward. I have to go do a bunch of other shit because I was already checked out of the game. The fun of flight was already worn out for me, and I was the last of my friends that were still playing. And so I was basically
Yep.
by myself, and then I had basically, and I looked it up online. People were like, oh, getting all the things you need to get together to getting all the things achieved for the quest to continue could take anywhere between 4 hours to 20 hours. I'm all like, no, I can go do other shit. I'm not gonna solo queue this. No, I'm out.
Also, other fun fact, it glitched so hard, I got two of a key item that you have to make at one point because you have to click the like create command in the menus to make it. I wound up with two of it because I clicked create the first time and nothing happened. And so I clicked it again like a couple hours later. And when I checked I turned it off, walked away, and came back a few hours after. Like I went to work or whatever. And when I came home, I had two of it.
Jeez.
And I was like, oh, so it glitched. It was supposed to be made when I clicked it the last time. It just glitched so hard that not only did it give me two, but it took literal, like, real time for it to get around to giving it to me.
That's insane.
God damn.
I actually have it installed
It
on
is.
my PS5
It's
right now,
so
but
glitchy.
it's like I've never even accessed it. So like no trophies are listing for it right now.
I mean, you can play it if you want, and I'll play it with you if you want to hop back in, but it's
Are the servers
rough,
even up?
and
They
I
are.
don't think... Yes,
I thought they shut those
it should
down.
be. Weirdly enough, I
Let me
don't
see.
know.
Oh,
Just because shits and giggles.
The-
Let's see. Are Anthem servers still up? The servers are still up and will remain online.
no, okay, there you go.
Now, here's the bad news. They had up until I want to say last year, there was what we're going to call the Last Hope. And it was a small team that was being allowed to, rather than update the game and try to fix it live, they were working on Anthem 2.0, where they would heavily rewrite it. We're talking like when Final Fantasy 14 stopped, dropped, and became a new game, that level of reboot. They were going to basically just junk a bunch of stuff completely, rebuild it from the ground up so that it would run properly and make it good. And that was a plan. But they pulled the plug on that after years of going back and forth. They've officially pulled the plug on that last year or the year before.
Definitely,
Uh,
maybe not even that. like way sooner than that.
Damn.
And so that's gone, meaning Anthem is in the state it is in. It is weirdly enough maintained enough to run, and there are people who play, and it still has like seasonal events. We're coming up on Halloween, so I think they have a yearly Halloween event that will activate, and people will play it. It still has a cash shop. It still runs. You still have access to whatever stuff you have. But as far as I know, it's the same glitchy, buggy mess that it always was.
And
So you may run into things, you may not, and they are not really actively patching. So
and things also, since we're not like, well, Anthem is like robot. You know, you get a
It's an
suit,
Iron Man suit.
but it isn't like true big
Iron Man
mecha.
suit.
In that same
No.
vein of not true mecha that's giant but still big suit Iron Man, there's two games that one I did play a lot of, but I can't recommend to people. That is good, but it's a huge investment. And another one is I'll just talk about the first one because it's in my mind right now. Is like Warframe, right? That's another one. You get a suit.
Oh, lots of people love Warframe. It's a really good game.
It is. I played a lot of it. I put a lot of hours in it. I have friends who put way more hours than me, like from the beginning. But oh boy, do you need to put in a lot of hours or a lot of money to get anywhere in that game. Because the amount of forma, you basically have to buy the ability to modify your character or wait 24 hours to get one item to get it. So you essentially pay, I think it's like $3 to increase the time, or you keep making this item, a single item called forma. Then you have to go get a blueprint. You have to go farm it from one item, make it. It takes 24 hours to make, or maybe 20 hours, something like that. And then you get one of it. You use it. It sends your character, it sends one of your suits back to 0. Then you level it back up again, and you could probably put a new mod on there that you couldn't before, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and every build usually requires 6 or 7 forma in it to go, and every gun is 4 to 6 depending on what gun it is. So one character and one gun is effectively waiting almost 2 weeks. One suit just waiting on the forma for, unless you're going to pay to speed up to get the forma access to it, is going to be a week of waiting.
I remember you making this argument before, and my thing with that is, when you're doing that, just play a different game.
Yeah, obviously, don't get me wrong, but like if that's a solution, the other solution then becomes I could just go play other games and not look back, because that's what I ended up doing, and I put a lot of forma and time, and bought a lot of forma. And then also too, if you want to do community stuff with like a guild, guess what you also need to make the guild hall bigger? Forma.
Oh my god.
So even if you want to make something cool for other people in your guild to hang out with, it costs forma to expand it. But the thing is, it has all the mecha shit. Your little mecha suit that you're inside of gets another mecha suit you get to hang out with in space, and you get to ride into a ship and do some combat in there, right? You get to fight a giant mecha out on the plains that was very hard at first, but then became cartoonishly easy because I damn near almost soloed it with one of my characters because I fucking formatted him out 8 times. Yeah, no, when I say I put a lot of time into it, I put a lot of time into it. And I stopped after I stopped right around the time when Mercury came out, because I was just like, I'm tired of resetting characters. I'm tired of going back to stage 1. I'm tired of figuring new shit out, and then I'm still not getting the one thing I'm trying to get. I've been trying for months. I'm sick of it. I'm out. Like I have to go do other shit, right? But yeah, no, like it's very difficult to like the genre needs more in it than what we got in things that are, because even then, right? Because I was thinking about like, oh yeah, you mentioned like Gundam Breaker. I totally forgot about Gundam Breaker, but even then, you guys didn't speak too positively about it, So it's like shit.
Well, Gundam Breaker 3 is good, but Will hasn't played that one yet, so.
Nope, I need to.
But on that note, guys, it's almost 12:30 a.m. We've been recording for
Yeah.
3 hours and 52 minutes, so you're definitely gonna be editing out at least into 2 different videos.
Definitely gonna be 2 episodes. I've officially decided to name anything that's not based off of a review, call it an off review. So if you are listening to this one, congratulations, you get to hear the process on how this works. This is going to be an off review episode after the Pacific Rim Uprising episode. Gentlemen, have you had a good time this evening?
I have. You got to give me more things to watch. You've been curating really good stuff for me.
Pornhub.com/.
They don't do movies there, do they? I've never heard of it.
Are you trying to say that Two Girls, One Mecha wasn't the first option
Shut
for
your
next
dirty
week?
whore mouth.
Isn't that called Gundam Witch of whatever it's called?
Witch of Mercury.
It's called Gundam
someone's been
Break
keeping
Her.
I gotta watch that
No.
one.
I heard Witch of Mercury is really good. It
Oh,
honestly
Witcher
looks
Mercury. I
fun.
thought you were going.
It's
no.
it's got the youngest child soldier murderer out of all the Gundam shows.
Are they 9? It wasn't like the youngest one.
Oh,
before,
no,
like
no,
13?
not that old. No. She gets into a suit as a toddler and
Shut
accidentally
up.
watch. You cannot believe me
Isn't
all
the
you
prologue
want. They
on
released
YouTube?
a prequel. Yeah, the prologue episode is 20 minutes, and it is the backstory for the main character. She is a toddler. She winds up getting into the suit, and they were having trouble coming up with because it's a different continuity, their continuity's version of like new type. They were trying to come up with how that worked, and she just naturally has it. So she hops in as a toddler and just points her hand at the screen because she just sees like triangles appearing and stuff. Targets an enemy suit and kills 2 pilots. She's the youngest child murderer in all of
That's
Gundam.
not
now.
traumatizing. That's
Shut
gamifying.
up. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
they gamified death. She literally has no idea what's going on. She's just like waving her hand at the screen, and it's just reacting to the fact that it can
I need
sync
to
with
watch
her.
this.
She's basically an iPad kid.
Murdering people with U.S. drones. She's the youngest soldier in history.
iPad Gundam.
You had iPad
cheat
Newt, and I
that.
have iPad Gundam. Oh fuck. But yeah, no, this is definitely great, good time. Let me know what the next one is, because this has been good going back and watching some of these things that definitely I missed, because I didn't watch Pacific Rim, I didn't watch Uprising.
So after this, we are returning
Are you
back
gonna-
to Metabots. So we're gonna, I believe the next episodes are 13 through 15, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go. It's
yeah,
been a
it's
while.
been a little bit.
Gonna have to go look that up again.
I'm pretty sure it's 13 through 15.
Did I start at the right spot?
And after we get through season 1 of Metabots, the dub, then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do the first 3 Transformers movies as specials.
Yeah, I remember we talked
Yeah,
about
I figure
that.
I might as well try to do that. The only reason I wanted to do Pacific Rim, though, is because I managed to watch both movies for my birthday, and then I continued to rewatch both movies leading up to these specials. Like, I think I
Wow.
watched Uprising 3 times in the last 3 weeks.
Man,
Damn.
you really
I
like
really
these.
wanted to talk about it. But that
Well,
being said,
Here's some more in the future.
thank you. So that being said, this is all I've got for you guys tonight. I am legit, and not literally, but just legit pooped. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Y'all have a good night. This is Big Mecha, but not. Oh wait, no, I did that backwards. Yeah, but not huge.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
it.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Let me stop that recording.